Okay, it's 1:30, so we shall begin. Beverly, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Shoemaker. Commissioner David.
Present.
Commissioner Gossick Simon.
Present.
Vice Mayor Moore.
Present.
Mayor Hillman.
Present.
Attorney Torcivia is not here yet. Town Manager Labadie is here. Just not in commission yet. Thank you.
Okay, we will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have we need to approve the agenda. Anybody have any additions or deletions? Can I have a motion then to approve it as it stands?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there are no presentations or proclamations. Do we have any public comments?
There is, the town clerk's office did not receive any electronic public comments, so no.
Okay. Announcements for board vacancies. There are 2 vacancies, both for 3-year terms for the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. 1 vacancy for a 3-year term for code enforcement. Financial Advisory Board has 3 vacancies, all for 3-year terms. Is that correct?
1 vacancy
Okay,
for 3-year term.
all right, this is incorrect then. 1 vacancy.
Yes, sir.
Natural Resources has 1 vacancy for a 3-year term. Planning Board, 1 vacancy for an unexpired term that ends on the 30th of 2022. Upcoming meetings, August 3rd at 1:30 is a Town Commission meeting. August 4th at 1:30, a Town Commission special meeting. On the 5th at 9 a.m., that's a coffee with the mayor in the library. This says board action report. There are none. Ordinances, there are none. Consent agenda, there are none. Unfinished business, fire rescue services, the implementation plan update. Turn that over to you, Marshall.
Yes, thank you. Before you, you have or received our implementation schedule. I do appreciate everybody taking time out of their schedules this morning to meet with Mr. Joseph, whose contract we'll discuss shortly. But we've added a few things in here. One of the concepts, I know that the worksheet, probably quickly said color, but there are 2 different looks at that implementation schedule, where we basically looked on the risk and or urgency of a task, if you will, has been denoted in a different color as one of the schemes. And I also put a % complete to also keep us on track as to once we start a task, how far along when we update it, are we complete with that task? I've done a few other touch-ups to it, but we're looking at, adding on the bottom. I changed that to monthly cost budget. And then I put actual cost, and one other comment was made or a request, and I'll put a cumulative cost. So as we go, we'll track what our anticipated budget was, and then how much we spend in each month, and then a cumulative running total as we go from month to month, so we can see, are we on track? Are we spending as we thought? If there isn't something that happens, a variance that is unanticipated, we can address that as we go along. And again, as you see these implementation tasks, these are larger overall tasks. We have an internal implementation team working with Mr. Joseph where we will begin to take each task and see what the series of subtasks are. That would make this chart an unreadable document as we move forward, but I will give you those updates, of course, as we move along through this process. So, as you look at this, we're making some big progress. We're going to knock off a couple of those today, getting our primary consultant in place with Mr. Joseph, moving forward with our architectural firm process through the RFP, getting that person in place or that firm in place, or at least beginning to do the formal negotiations with that. Glenn's making his last couple of tweaks on the medical director thing, but again, we've already got Mr. Cohen in place that would knock that task off. And then you see a few of the others that we'll start working on. And then as you noted in the red, we're really focused on that COCPN component has a concern, but again, ballot language. Now, Glenn and I are going to bring that to you on August 3rd, and we're going to have that discussion because as Linelda's indicating, sometime in August, she doesn't have an exact date from the supervisor of election when our submission deadline is for that language. So we're going to tack it a little bit earlier so we don't miss our opportunity if that date seems to change. So August 3rd, we're going to come back and settle on some ballot language, asking the voters to authorize that material. And then our PR firm consultant has got their MAP together. MAP stands for Marketing Action Plan, kind of the concepts, themes, and I'll be sharing that with you hopefully next week once they give me their final draft, and then we start tackling those pieces of public outreach as we move along.
August 3rd is like around the corner, tomorrow and a half. Okay. So I know we have kind of talked offline about should we or should we not also be asking the voters about how we're going to be financing it. So as soon as possible, we need to know what the costs are of the various financing options as well. So when we make the decision of do we or don't we bring the financing question up or not, we also need to know as a commission what the costs are of the different options. So, and they can be estimates, not hard numbers. So can we get Matt working on that?
Sure. So once if you guys move forward with the recommendation to enter into agreements with, I forgot the architect's name, we'll get them in and start talking with them. I can't imagine we won't come to terms on a contract, but I could ask them to provide that post haste as far as what they, a range of options for type of improvements to the facility, because they were quite prepared in their proposals.
Yeah. No, I'm referring to, we keep talking $8 to $10 million total.
That's total
Costs. So we're going to go to our residents with a not to exceed number. So let's say our 8 to 10 guesstimate at this point holds. So we would then go to the population with a not to exceed $10 million, let's say.
Okay.
The question then becomes, do we also go to them with the financing of it? Or do we wait until March on that?
So what I would say is that we'll have, currently Glenn and I, as of yesterday afternoon, we're going to present you with 2 questions for consideration on that ballot. One is the authorization to form the department, hire the people, finance the costs. You heard the word finance in there. And that basically allows us to, if we buy apparatus, we can lease the apparatus or other type of finance vehicles. The second question directly relates to if or if not, we want to ask the voters to approve a bond issue for the firehouse modification. And then that number most likely will be less than our total implementation costs because it's only one piece that requires their authorization to sell general obligation bonds under the full faith and credit of the ad valorem tax base. So that question is probably going to be a lesser number than say 10, because that's our total implementation. We're looking at a number, I would say somewhere between a not to exceed amount, somewhere I'd probably say 5 to 7.5, somewhere in that wheelhouse.
And what I'm suggesting is before we contemplate doing that, I want to know what the cost of alternative financing is and what the cost of financing through a bond is.
Sure,
Because you don't issue a bond for free.
correct.
That's a very small offering. And it may be better for us to finance it through bank loans.
Sure.
So
We will get started on that and
before
have
we
those
cross
answers.
that
Yes.
bridge, let's find out what the alternative costs are. And I guess my second question would be, is it's not going to cost us 6 to 7 million to do the work that has to be done on that building. So how could we be looking at that kind of a financial package? If it costs us 3 million, we can't do a $6 million offering if it's $3 million to do that. So the bond would be, or the financing package would be for more than just the extension of that building.
Correct, but because we won't have all the details, we're looking to a not to exceed amount on a potential bond issue. So you're authorized to go up to amount. We could go considerably lower. We just don't want to
Of course.
short ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is I'd like to see alternatives of financing and
Sure.
what the costs are for these alternatives.
Sure.
No, not on that. This is a separate discussion.
Sure.
It's separate from this report. We know we have to finance some of this, but we may take some from reserves. Got plenty of reserves, may want to take a couple of million from reserves, might want to take bank loans for it and not a bond. You see, for small bonds, you may not want to pay the cost to do it all. And we're not talking about, listen, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But in the scheme of financing, it's not a lot of money. So bank loans with today's very low interest rates may
Maybe
be a
attractive,
better
right.
alternative. On the other hand, after the work is done, it may end up saying not a better alternative. But if we were talking about $30 million, I wouldn't bring the subject up. Okay? Shoot.
As Marshall said, we talked about the two alternatives. One is putting both of those on this ballot in November. And the other alternative, obviously, just going with the one question on the fire department and the funding and the financing and saving the financing till you maybe get more information. And you could always do, if the decision is a bond issue, you could do that in March. If the decision is alternative financing, you don't need the bond issue. You may not need to put it on the ballot at all. So just wanted to say those are the second. He talked about the first, grouping it together. The other option is obviously separate.
I totally understand that. And it may not be appropriate to do it at this point. Might not have all their information ready. It's nice to have the option of doing it in March also.
Okay.
Mayor?
We'll present that information back. I'll have Matt. I know that he started working on that before. Briefly, we talked about, what is it? Interest rates on shorter term finance notes and stuff. So we'll take a look at that along with the cost of bond counsel. And
Yeah, the rates are so low now. Maybe worth taking it this way and maybe worth taking it on a shorter term.
Sure.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
to back what you say because the question I receive most often from residents is how are we going to pay for this? And if we could just have some generalized figures and language so that we have some answers for them, that would be terrific at this point. They're not questioning what we're doing, they're questioning how. Will taxes rise, especially coming on the ends of the water rate restructure? I think they're just a little tuned into that. So I completely agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely get all our homework done in advance. Thank you.
Yep, Matt's on it.
I like the colors. I don't know if we're commenting on the colors. I like feel like it draws your eyes to the really at-risk tasks.
Okay, good. Yeah. Super great progress being made. It was a pleasure spending some time with Mr. Joseph, Glenn Joseph. We're smiling because Glenn's middle name is Joseph, if you didn't know.
Myself said, hello, Glenn Joseph. I'm Glenn Joseph.
don't have any more questions. Anybody have any other comments or questions on this?
We'll stay with the colors.
Yep, the display is excellent.
Okay.
Okay, keep it up. Let's move on then to Resolution 2021-021. Resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, authorizing the Town of Highland Beach, herein referred to as the governmental unit, to join with the state of Florida and other local governmental units as a participant in the Florida Memorandum of Understanding and formal agreements implementing a unified plan. Back to you, Marshall.
Before we jump into that, I think we missed strategic priorities was underneath implementation plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is page 9. Thank you.
Yep.
And a lot of good progress was made on that also.
So yeah, we're active doing our heavy lifting again, fire, being a one priority, not that others aren't a priority, but we're working on that. And you could see we've done our best to kind of mark the progress of all the other strategic priorities that were set out for this fiscal year. Some things we haven't totally gotten to or maybe slightly pushed back because of the schedule. And we've added a couple of new projects that have come up since we put this in place. Those 3 new projects is building recertification ordinance and program. We all recognize why that became an urgent matter. So that's kind of has to get pushed up in the system, and we are actively working on that. The Veterans Memorial and website became a priority. We're working on that. Again, in order to do some of these fire modifications, we had to start getting some as-built materials together in preparation for the architect and firm to come on board. Most importantly, finding our deed to ownership, which allows us then to do some as-built work. So those were some of the 3 new projects. So we've reported progress. I could answer any questions. Again, what we plan to do from here as we get closer towards the budget itself, if you recall, these came into 4 strategic areas, and within those 4 strategic areas, departments that work on those things were kind of, in a sense, aligned with those. So we're going to take these projects and put it into the budget document so if it's a public safety issue and it involves the police department, that strategic priority, not in any great detail, but you'll see that that's been assigned to the police department in the budget book. So police is working on 4 strategic priorities, building on 3, library on 2 or 4, whatever that is, just so we can begin to do that alignment. It's kind of that model to align operations to our strategic operations. So we're going to do that, and then we'll get a new draft for next year, kind of showing what we've completed. And then this becomes this moving document, but we're going to begin to work on that alignment back into operations.
John?
So it's funny because I had asked for an update on this, and you already were in process of doing so. The only concern I have that I have to have is when looking at the Veterans Monument Memorial, that you're tying it to the fire department in that building, which I understand. But can we do something to show more progress with the website? It seems like we've been working on that for months, and we really should kind of resolve that in the next 2 months at least. I know Teresa's been working on it, but you guys have been doing a lot of other things, to say the least. And believe me, I think the progress and the work that you guys have been doing, especially after we review what's been done so far on the fire rescue plans, is excellent. It is outstanding. It is impressive. However, I'm still going to crusade for the veteran website, knowing we're also going to have to wait for the memorial and to be congruent with our activities for the fire.
Sure. I will give you, I'll send an email update on what the progress is with that. Teresa, can you step out for a minute? And still, you don't have to be on the 1s and 2s for a moment. Could you? Hold on just 1 second. I got to have her do 2 things here. So there we go.
That's why I know she's very busy. Double duty, triple duty.
So with regard to the veterans webpage, I sent you the draft and we have it mapped out. However, you wanted some more graphics built into it, and I'm not capable of making those graphics. So with the PR firm, Marshall and I spoke about it. We're going to have them assist us with getting the website set together. I think 2 months, we should be able to have something out. It may not be the final product, but it'll definitely be a working product.
So, and I understand all of that, and I know that you have tried to do this in addition to everything else. Having the separate marketing firm work on this is really what I was hoping for. I think that's excellent. I think as a timeline, if we can have an operational website within 60 days, knowing that we're going to continually, tweak it, improve it, and so forth. I just want to have it up so that our veterans in town and others, families, can see it.
Absolutely.
All right? So I appreciate your effort, and I just want to push a little to get it done.
Understood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Evelyn?
No, I don't have a question. We seem to be moving right along, and that's good.
Peggy, anything?
Couple things. First of all, it's a joy to see this list. I would have never guessed 3 years ago that we'd be this far and with such a good commission. So I want to thank my fellow commissioners and Marshall and staff. It's just amazing. Sort of definitely gonna nominate us for best little town in Florida, if not the world. Couple questions. For our mission, I know the mayor had suggested this a few months back, but I just wondered if we could maybe update our mission statement to a different, unique sense of unique place or best little seaside home, or just if we could maybe take some, it's just a nebulous saying, and I think it confuses people. Though I love it, thought we may have a contest or greatest fire department in the world. I don't know. Just an idea to maybe update that. Secondly, under strategic priorities, numbers 8 and 10, they may need to be merged because they're sort of the same issue as we move along. I do have a letter from our state senator, Tina Polsky, and she had also written a letter supporting our efforts for the swale repairs, which I could read into the record or distribute to my fellow commissioners. But we may need to merge those. Just, I don't know how you feel about that, Marshall, or just they can work together.
So you're talking the right-of-way disruption along with A1A drainage and flooding issues?
Yes,
8 and 10?
it's just that they're the same 17 feet on each side of the road. We can keep them separate, but maybe recognize that they need to be merged somehow. There's going to be an overlap.
Yeah.
I just
So,
wanted to point that out if you wanted to update everyone on.
so I think they tie together.
I mean, we can
The
listen.
right-of-way drainage ordinance, I'm keeping separate because it's a separate process and set of steps at the commission. I gave the latest update to Commissioner Shoemaker, the sponsor, yesterday, Monday night maybe or something. So we're going to get that back. I put that on ice for a short period of time. We had some other heavy lifting we wanted to get done. But we're ready to bring that forward. We've taken some more public comments in on that topic. So once Commissioner Shoemaker is comfortable, then we'll bring it back to the commission to see if we're ready to put it through the process, take it to the planning board for approval, this and that. So that's moving forward. And then as you have indicated with Mr. Caruso from last meeting, that A1A drainage, getting FDOT to make some stronger commitments to repairing what they said needs to be repaired. That is forthgoing. We're putting together some of the supplemental documents that Mr. Caruso had asked for on the mapping. We did that. That's complete. So we'll share that to you too. So it's also of interest. We also put crash incident locations on there along with the drainage areas, kind of tying that together, representative look at some of the issues we have and why FDOT should be compelled to complete their project. So I think they're standalone, but they are intrinsically linked that, one should happen with the other. So once we improve A1A drainage, we have to make sure people don't mess it up in the right of way and get permits and or set their level of expectations for residents in the right of way.
Okay, great. If we could just designate the overlap there and perhaps in an ensuing meeting, we can provide more information as we get there.
Yeah, we could start talking about linkages between projects and get I just don't want to get too
Yeah,
wonky
no, I
on
got
a
it.
policy
Right.
document because I can get
No,
stuck
that's
in
fine.
there and it'd be really
Of
fun,
course.
but.
No problem.
Yep.
One more point under the next page, 10, on the community survey engagement process. Are we considering, did we budget? I can't remember offhand. Are we doing light up the holidays and spring fling budgeting in this coming fiscal year? And if so, do we need to talk about that?
Yeah, so in your budget, we do have dollars reprogrammed for Mingle Jingle. I think Linelda came up that and Beverly had some
Oh, that's
like
so
that.
cute. That's
clever
adorable.
names. So we'll, kind of transform it. We're going to change the format, make it a little more engaging with the community, more of a social mixing environment with holiday music, kind of changing that format a bit. So that's on cue. Beverly's shaking her head because she handles this for us. So on cue, that's in budget, barring some other type of, let's all keep, knock on wood, nothing pops up on us again and we can all do these bigger events. So that's in place. And on the survey stuff, we found that we're looking through a couple of tools that are available, software tools to do basic community surveying. I don't want to say that a statistically valid survey is ever going to be done, but if we want to, do some simple polling of our residents, what do you think about this? Or are you interested in this? We're trying to come up with the right tool to engage the community to participate in a more simple format. I'm sure we all see like Survey Monkey, some basic stuff like that, trying to see what would work best for us.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then under number 18, scanning the documents, what exactly was scanned and how much more is there to be scanned? And I wondered what status of the building department documents we have recovered, uncovered, discovered.
I'm looking at Beverly. She's going to jump in if I mess this
Great.
up. So
Just
we went
curious.
back. Again, you said there's 75,000 pages of documents have been scanned. That was a lot of boxes. Now we're going to the next queue of boxes, 17 to 19.
Yes.
And then we'll then also then get to the building department simultaneously for some of they're going through their permit files.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good. I'm doing good
Yes.
here. Okay. And those are all in queue to go out. So as they box them up, they deliver them to the clerk's office. The clerk's office, if you will, audits those to make sure they're in the right fashion, prep for being scanned. And then the scanning comes back and then the scanning goes into Laserfiche and hopefully then gets resorted in a usable format.
Good job.
Okay. So yeah, so we're moving along and moving to this paperless or at least document imaging protocol. So if my building folks are listening, I always joked with Carolyn Lindsay, if you touch it, scan it, kind of the concept that gets us away from paper. And the building department's done a great job also going completely online. So we're moving to that model. So we're progressing.
Yes. Okay, and lastly, I just thought maybe you wanted to add number 11 to completed the fact that we negotiated COVID and the states of emergency in a great fashion led by yourself and the chief.
Which number was that?
I just suggested that you managed, you being yourself, your staff, the chief, managed COVID beautifully in the last, 14 months.
It seems
I don't
like
know if
forever.
you consider that a task, but I think certainly you need acknowledgement that you managed that states of emergency very well.
Well, thank you. Chief Hartman did a lot of the heavy lifting. So we did a good job. I think the community did a great job with the response. And the commission did a great, again, those that are listening, if you start to hear this, what we're talking about, there's a common theme of this collective success that we're starting to achieve. So we're really building on that and I'm excited to see that here.
Let's hope we don't have to do it again with the Delta variant.
No, we won't. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Tasha?
Yeah, I have a suggestion. Can you put in the header, like updated as of July 2021, so we always know what it's updated as of. There's a project that's listed both in the commenced and the completed crosswalk enhancement project. Why is it in both those sections?
Because the commission added a additional component, so we're not completely, the initial project, which was the rapid flashing beacons, pedestrian activated, and the improvements and the flags were one. The commission elected to move forward with the overheads and approve the budget amendment for such. So we added a kind of an element to it, so it's not completely out until we get that overhead lights, which we have ordered. So those hopefully will go in the next, 6 to 8 weeks. Depends on how long it takes those products to be made and shipped.
So if we could rename it or, something.
Sure.
So it doesn't look like it's an oversight, that it's in both. So number 6, develop a communication plan. What does that mean specifically?
So we brought a draft communication plan that we thought was pretty good. The commission had indicated that they would like to see it modified. And so what we're doing is we will, based on the success, if you will, of Pace Advertising, that's kind of our PR firm. We have a secondary scope of service with them to take a look at our communication plan and kind of do a better job of making it a more functional document. What we provided was something maybe more common that you see in a traditional public environment where we are more trained to communicate with everyone, and we didn't really strategically align that communication plan. So we're going to bring a firm in to help us update that communication plan, how we reach out to the community, what are our measurables, how do we do that? Kind of adding a more of a marketing element to that, how we communicate our messages out, what are the best means and methods to reach the appropriate segments of our population. So we're learning a little bit, and the firm is going to help us take our understanding of a communication plan to a different level. So we're working on that. So basically, how do you what is our goals and attempts to communicate with the public? What are the best vehicles? How we're going to use those vehicles? How often? How frequent? And kind of do it that way.
And how does that differ from number 15, community survey and engagement process?
Well, the communication plan will probably, again, going back to what Commissioner Gossett-Simon said, there's an intrinsic link there.
Okay.
But they were identified as two separate things. I think the community engagement and survey came out of survey, and we kind of expanded that in our first go through with the strategic planning process that we had a lot of requests from the community. Why don't you survey? Why don't you ask? Why don't you poll? So that became a strategic priority. We were talking about it on a regular basis, and we said, okay, and maybe I, use some of my normal language, and I said, let's talk community survey and engagement. How are we going to start getting to communicate to the public? Because at the time, the Highlander kind of fell to the wayside. We weren't reaching out much. So it kind of took its own shape without a communication plan. But when we started doing those things, we said, we probably need a communication plan for the long haul. So we're kind of.
Can I help you here?
Sure, please, please.
Market research is a discipline unto itself. And you don't just send out a survey. You need to know what you're doing. And we don't have the tools here to do it to begin with, just like we don't have the tools to do proper communications. So the more we talked about it, the more we realized that we needed a professional organization to help the town. Not just in terms of frequency of communications, but we didn't even have the software to put the communications pieces together. We can certainly type things up and send them out, but that's not what's required for this kind of communications. So when we got to the point where the Highland Beach Fire Department needed to be communicated on an educational basis to the residents, we said, this is the perfect opportunity to bring in a professional organization. So that's when he reached out to Pace, that he found there in Boca, They have the credentials. They've worked on I forgot which assignment it was for the city of Boca, but they also worked on the Boca Airport, et cetera. So he brought them in. In the last 6 months or so, the office has been working on trying to increase the email list. We started with a little over 400. I think it was 425 or 450 T. Am I close? And now we have close to 1,300. So just the letters that each of us as commissioners have been sending, asking them, people to write into T to register, and what we've put on the website, et cetera, all those efforts are paying off. So now we have a much more viable email list, at least get into some 1,300 homes. So now that we're getting it, we said, well, we need the tools to put together the proper communication pieces. So that's why all this is starting to come together. Okay. But you can see from the manager's minute, is that what it's called, that Marshall and T put together, they just don't have the software to put the proper piece together. So that's why we need some outside help. Whether that help is going to be with us temporarily or a long term, don't even know if they'll be good. But you got to try, you got to get your feet wet. So that brings you a little bit of background as to how we got to where we are right now. Okay. And so the research side, if I may, research again is a separate discipline. You don't just send a questionnaire out. This is all just very surface. It's qualitative, it's not quantitative. So whatever we do, we need to do it with people that understand market research, know the difference between qualitative and quantitative, and whatever we get back is purely directional. That's it. Okay.
And I think, Mayor, you had also said, well, this is, in the past has been more outgoing focused, that we also want to get the feedback and to categorize it and to assess it, that provides the data for directional, strategy.
Right. Yeah. And, you're trying to get a hold of the stakeholders. If we end up getting it back from the influencers, then we know we're getting it from influencers. That's not purely representative of the whole population that's out there, but it gives us some input and some guidance.
Okay. And what is number 11, continue strategic budget process?
That's kind of more of an overarching thing, but again, like taking this and aligning that into our budget document. So continuing that process of having a dynamic budget document that's a strategic plan that lays out what we are trying to accomplish, allows us to reach our mission and vision, whatever those are modified to, and ensuring that we're staying focused on our values. So it's more of a guidance document as to how we spend our money on our priorities at a price that the residents are willing to pay.
Okay. So when I read this time, what occurred to me was we have 18 projects that are commenced. Perhaps at the next update, I'd recommend that we highlight which ones are our high priority. When I read it, it just seemed a little strange to me that the fire services was, the fourth one. And I'm sure that's just the way it kind of fell with this document. But it seems to me there are some projects that are a higher priority, and I would recommend that we rank them or something, put it towards the top. There are some projects that are kind of ongoing that don't really have an end date, or perhaps we can flesh out an end date. So perhaps separate those as well. And so I don't know if we do that as a group, maybe that, this is the 2020 strategic priorities plan. I don't know what our plan is as far as like doing a more meaty review of what all the projects are. I see this as kind of like an interim update to kind of update what the dates are and where it falls. I'd ask maybe next time that maybe we highlight which ones are the high priority ones and put them more towards the top. And maybe separate the ones that are ongoing that really, I don't know, like that community survey and engagement project. Some of these just don't really seem to have an end date.
Well, basically what we did as a commission is we started this off, the commission ranked these. So these are in the order initially ranked about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And we'll go back into, hopefully during the budget process here at the end, we'll bring back the whole document. This is just an update. The whole document shows you all the other items that are related to it and the 4 strategic priorities and how they're ranked within the strategic priorities. And then there was the overall ranking of the project, which as a commission, you all recognize that on a year-to-year basis, you have to re-rank and pull some stuff out. And again, this was our first strategic activity as a community, as I saw it. So this is something we're going to be revisiting, but the priorities change through the year too, right?
Right.
So we probably have to go back in and say, boy, why is fire number 4 when it should probably be number 1? Well, back up 14 months ago when we started this, fire was there and it was really important, but people were screaming crosswalks and we had some problems with our underground that we had to complete the underground televising. So since then, we've got a handle on 1 or 2. They were priorities. They're basically done. The CCTV is done. We just have to do some projects, which I indicated last week at your meeting that we've authorized the point breaks that were identified under that CCTV. That's what made it a number 1 priority, is that we knew we had breaks in the line we had to fix. So we're addressing those now. So when we come back to revisit this during our budget workshops and public hearings, we'll just reshuffle those a little bit and reorder those as you guys see fit into the proper spot based on today's sets of priorities.
I'd just like to add that when we prioritize these, we were each asked to prioritize things. So what I may think of as 1, somebody else may think of as 2 or 3. So it's really impossible to get a true priority rating. And some of these, because you have to rate it 1, 2, 3, some of them are all the same. That, they're equally important. So it really is very hard to do what you're asking, because not only does it change over time, but we aren't all on exactly the same list.
Yeah, I understand. We're not all entirely in line. It's just there's 18 projects and there's, not really a differentiation between digitization of public record and some of these other things.
Well, but the numbers is what indicates what's more important and what's not.
Not on, all he's doing is reporting here.
Yeah.
This is not prioritized.
This is a generalized list.
What the process we went through, we have to go through virtually every year.
This is,
We started with a dump. The dump was, here's everything we can think of that has to be done in this town. We then took that list of, I don't know what it was, 40 items, 50 items, whatever the heck it was. And we divided them into the categories we thought they fit into, where there was commonality. And then we prioritized within the commonality. And I think we had 4 groups or 5 groups of common. And then we merged them into priorities. Very difficult to do, but you have to do it. And then with that, and the commission ended up having, we agreed. From that, Marshall then had a priority listing of what has to be accomplished. And what you're suggesting is basically what we did about a year ago, whenever it was. And we have to redo it again. And there aren't things that are on the list that are going to come up. We're going to have ideas of things we yet haven't done and need to attack. And that becomes his whiteboard for the next year. Okay.
Yeah, so how often do we do that process?
I'm sorry?
How often do we do that process?
I think we should do it every year.
Okay, so was it done yet for 2021?
this was tied to the current operating fiscal year. So that's why it's called the 20, because we're in the 2021 budget. Now we're moving to the 21-22 budget. So
Right.
we'll talk about this. And August is generally when we started this conversation, right? When our budget hearings come up, where we kind of jump into the departments. Teresa and I are already queuing up the 21 strategic priorities. It'll list it out, it'll put them back, and you'll see what was accomplished. And then we'll bring it back and say, this one needs to move up. You collectively say, move it up, move it down.
There are some very natural things. Obviously, fire will be very high on the list. You know, where we'll really have some good debates soon when we start getting to number 4, 5, 6 kind of stuff, you know. And it's lively debates and it's good. And then he gets his marching orders. And then from that, he starts working with his staff on what his staff has to now start dealing with.
Okay, so we'll start looking at,
You know, once we get the
The-
budget out of the way.
well, after the budget. Okay.
Okay.
That sounds
But
good.
you're right on target, and so are you. So we're all our heads are in the same wavelength.
Okay, that's all I have.
I don't have anything other than to say, you got a heck of a lot accomplished. Well done, and well done to the staff, because you don't do it by yourself. I think we need to add some things for the police department, though, next year.
I do too.
He's trying to hide over there.
Add
You
some
can-
projects.
Yeah, we need some major projects. for-
How about beach cleanup, no?
Anything else before we move on? We're all good? Okay, I already read Resolution 2021-021. Marshall, it's yours.
If you don't mind, I'm going to turn this over to Glenn because this
Sure.
came to our attention. I don't know the exact time, but basically there's, some of you may know the Purdue Pharma lawsuit on the opioid crisis surfaced. There was a class action lawsuit, state by state, I believe, the Florida contingent.
I thought you were going to turn it over to Glenn.
Glenn, go for it.
He has a hard time with that
You can
sometimes.
sit down now.
I can sit down. So as Marshall said, that, you know, we had the opioid and still is an opioid crisis. Actually, it's been kind of overridden by the COVID crisis, but opioids are still an issue. But Purdue Pharma and a few others went bankrupt, and there were tons of lawsuits. And the different attorney generals have been all around the country trying to negotiate. And so the Florida Attorney General has negotiated this proposed memorandum of understanding that's going out to all the cities, towns, villages in the state with the idea that they'll be the clearinghouse, the money that's collected, and then they'll distribute it to those different towns based on a formula. And as you can see, we're going to make a lot of money here. It's an estimate $3,400 to $6,500 a year for the next 10 years, declining probably every year. But it's something. And if you don't enter into this agreement, you probably wind up with nothing or a lot less than that. We have to go through the process of filing your own claims and paying legal fees. So this has been a lot easier, more efficient process. And yeah, there's no guarantee when they're in bankruptcy how much money is going to flow. This is their best estimates that it'll be in that $3,500 to $6,500 range for Highland Beach. And then you have to use the money for specified purposes. And I did speak with the chief earlier today, and you know, probably the one that makes the most sense is first responder training and perhaps some prevention programs and in terms of dealing with opioids. So that's kind of the 50,000 foot view of this wonderful process. And if you're interested, then we'd ask you for a motion to approve it, and then we'll transmit that agreement up to the state, and they'll continue to send emails as this progresses. And by the way, this is still all tentative because there's no final agreement within the bankruptcy, but this is the draft that's been working its way through for the last 6 to 7 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions, anybody?
Actually, I do. First of all, I understand that having read through it, we could get reimbursed for attorney's fees, litigation. We didn't have any, did we?
Very, very little. We kind of took this on when this first came out. We filed these for about a dozen of our clients. We just put claims in so that we preserve the rights. And depending on the size of the community and how much of an issue there was, and again, the formula that the Attorney General's office has worked out, each town will then get a little piece. You've had some attorney's fees, but they're very minimal. I wouldn't even say I don't know, a couple $100, if that.
Mm.
Because again, we spread it around among everything. If we did one filing, you paid 1/10 of that one filing. So whatever it was, so it was very minimal.
So next question is, given the opioid crisis was just debilitating for so long, and maybe this is better asked of the chief, how did it affect Highland Beach and its people here? I mean, where did we see the negative impact from the opioid crisis? And in particular, I would imagine it be mainly experienced by the EMS, and that's Delray. So maybe it's better asked of Delray in terms of how much they use naloxone and other medications.
Again, Chief and I spoke about this yesterday and today a little bit. Again, it's hard to quantify, how many residents have had some addiction to opioids in Highland Beach over the last years, how many people were transported by EMS, how many overdoses were there. Again, we don't know those numbers. I don't know those numbers right now. But again, this is prospective as well. So the money that's coming in will go towards future training, future prevention efforts. So I had that same concern. Does the money go to Delray? No, Delray has their own pot, their own claim that they can
Exactly.
for going forward. So this will be for Highland Beach.
Plus its potential of family members, children, grandchildren may not be here, could be elsewhere, but the family gets affected,
Well, but I think we're talking about something in the area of $3,000 to $8,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's not an awful lot of money, although it's over 10 years and, as you said, on a declining scale. But the point is, it would seem you could eat that up quickly, especially with our new operation with EMS, with training, with whatever we need in the way of equipment for continued drug problems in the town. So that would help in our EMS planning.
right.
So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
So-
I don't know.
That's the way we looked at it. There's no harm in applying for this money. You'll get some money back and it costs you very little.
Yeah, so let's make a motion and get a second on it. Go for it.
Do we want more
Yeah,
feedback
can
from
we-
the others?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go
If
ahead.
it's my turn, I don't know. Do you know, like, there was something about if there's a certain percentage of the municipalities that opt in, if it's more than 85%, then they create a fund that would be used to pay for attorney's fees. Do you have is it known how many people are how many municipalities are opting?
Now, you're on page 24 of the agenda item, and the more local governments participate, the more money will be in the fund. So as you can see, if you have 96% to 100% of the municipalities participating, then there's 100% of whatever this fund is going to wind up being, this unknown amount, will go into the local government fund. But if you only have 91 to 95%, it's only going to be 7.5%. 86 to 90%, 5%. So if you get down to less than 85%, it's going to be zero. So that's why we're encouraging all the communities to get involved, because the more that are involved, the bigger the pot's going to be that everybody can share in.
Yeah, there's no reason not to participate.
Right.
There's
But
no
is everybody
downside.
else feeling that same way? There's no reason
Yeah,
not to
I've
participate
presented
there?
this now. Green Acres last night approved it. I think Lake Worth Beach is scheduled to approve it tonight or consider it tonight. So for every city that we've put it in front of, South Palm Beach, I think, is considering it next meeting. So we're all getting on the same train for the same reason. The more cities that are involved, bigger the pot, small as the pot may be. Although, as you noticed, this pot's going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions, when all is said and done, but you're spreading it around so many communities with such larger populations. I imagine a city like Tampa is going to get a lot more money, obviously, than Highland Beach is going to have.
Peg, did you have something you wanted to say?
That was my question also. Thank
Oh,
you.
Okay. Okay, are we done?
No, I agree with John. To me, this is a no-brainer. Doesn't
Right.
cost us anything, and potentially we will get money out of it that if we didn't join, we wouldn't get.
Correct.
Right.
And certainly we wouldn't get it without expending a lot of money. So no downside.
Correct. Would you
Okay.
like to make a motion?
On that note, I move that we accept Resolution 2021-021 as presented.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's move on to page 41, which is to approve the recommendation of the evaluation committee authorizing authorized town staff to conduct the negotiations. And Eric, I think you're going to take us through it?
Green button.
Thank you. There's not much more to describe than what's in the agenda item. We're approving to negotiate with the first ranked firm, which is PGAL. And we're asking that we can get your blessing on that and proceed with that negotiation.
You started with, what was it, 8 firms?
Yes, there's 8 firms,
Then you brought it down to,
3 that we did interviews and presentations with, and then re-ranked, re-scored, and the ranking you have, I think it was an attachment. You have that in front of you.
Mhm.
So the first firm, PGAL, is the firm we're going to move forward with negotiation with. And then if that doesn't work with them, can move on to the second firm and then the third. But in my experience, I've never had to go to the second or third.
And what specifically did your group like so much about PGAL?
I think it was their experience with, rehabbing existing structures and not just tear down and rebuild. So that was my takeaway.
Mhm.
So
The others didn't have the experience of rehabbing?
I'm sure they did, but PGAL really brought home the point of the rehabilitation of the building. And that's our direction.
Sure it is. Yeah. Where are they located?
I think they're located in Boca Raton.
Ah. Okay.
Yep.
How large are they?
I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that, the numbers.
Any sense of the size of their staff or anything?
I think it's around 30. I'd have to check. I don't want to give you an exact number.
No, that's okay. Anybody have any questions of Eric while he's there?
Well, I've got a couple points. First of all, I've done quite a few proposals in my time, and also RFPs that I've had to respond to, and the quals that you go through, and all of that. I think honestly, knowing this is a government kind of RFP and RFQ, this is outstanding. I am impressed with the thoroughness, the comprehensive nature of it. And I really worked hard to figure what value could I add in any of this, given, relative experience that I've had in the proposal world. And I think you've done a very good job.
Thank you.
I think the fire station design is an example where you go through phase 1, voter approval, phase 2 with design, progress measurables. You go through 3 and then 4 with construction. So everything was broken out very well. I have one problem. Why PGAL would even bring up the concept of shovel ready? It's beyond me. Just from a political standpoint, that's a no win. But their experience, their response, I'm looking at pages here of real experience, photographed, illustrated, detailed, without question represents, a no-brainer. On the other hand, having checked with the chief as well, it would seem that the list of 6 or so that were selected, any one of them could do this project.
That's why it's a little difficult to pinpoint why we went with them over somebody else. But that was the main takeaway, was they emphasized the rehabilitation of the building and adding on.
Yeah.
So
Well, clearly it seems that they're close, they're experienced, they're knowledgeable, they know how to respond to something like this
Yep.
in the most comprehensive way. I don't know what else more you could add to this. So I want to just give you and the whole team, because I understand this was a
Yep.
big team.
Yep.
And especially those that had to rate these firms. Excellent job. That's all I
Thank
have.
I basically agree with John. I'm not prepared to substitute my feelings for those who actually saw the presentations. And you're right, when everybody is basically qualified, you've got to go on your gut and what type of presentation was done.
Right.
So I have no problem with whoever you selected, you were there. The presentation here was obviously a lot of work, very well put together. And I think we should just move forward with it. And
Great.
thank you for putting in the time.
Thank you.
Peggy?
I agree fully with Evelyn and John.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I guess one question, do you talk to the people who they actually had that project done, like Fort Lauderdale looked like they had it done? Did you talk to them?
Yeah, we asked for
One?
references and, we call those people
You did call
that
them,
got their
okay.
work and the committee reviews those and that's part of the scoring. So that's part of that process.
And I imagine you got very positive feedback.
We did. We got
that.
great feedback. Yeah,
and
there's nothing negative to note.
They came in at budget as far as cost goes. They didn't
Well-
provide an estimate and then.
So part of this process is it's the CCNA process. So we don't discuss costs until after we've already ranked, and that's what we're asking for now is to negotiate the price. It's all based on qualifications. So this was an RFQ. All of it's based on qualifications, not price.
But when you spoke to the people who had a project done by this company, did they, as part of their feedback, give you an idea of whether or not they came in at budget?
Yeah, they did. There was nothing notable in change orders or anything that was conspicuous. All pretty great reviews. So,
Okay.
I'm good.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're all satisfied and good to go on this.
Certainly I am.
Okay, so we need authorization to negotiate the deal.
I move that we authorize the approval and contract negotiations with PGAL.
Second emotion.
Do we need all say yay for this, okay?
Yeah, if you're all, yeah, if there's
Okay,
point of
all in
contention.
say yes.
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 Aye.
On to the next.
When you do your homework, it makes everything easy.
All right.
Okay, this jumps to page 220. Item C, approve and authorize the mayor to execute fire rescue consulting services agreement with GC Joseph and Associates LLC to assist with the establishment of fire rescue and EMS department. The services agreement is attached. Anybody have any questions? We'll start with you, John.
Well, and this would be mainly for those watching this meeting. Glenn Joseph is a consultant that's been presented as a great resource for us. I just have to rattle this off. Experienced firefighter, been a chief of fire. He's a nurse. He's worked with FEMA as a contract instructor. He's a trainer, has hazard materials. He's an inspector, arson investigations. The man has so much experience across the board in the, what you call public safety and fire rescue, right up including incident command. So just the background alone, his ability to articulate that in a very comprehensive, no, that's not the right word, in a very effective manner is impressive. I was very pleased. I support him 100%. Done.
I'll just add, on his background, he was the deputy fire chief in Boca for 20 years, 19, 20 years. And he was the fire chief in Boynton Beach for 4 years. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Joseph is extremely well qualified. He is a perfect candidate to do exactly what we need when you find somebody who works. He's familiar with the area. I would absolutely want to work with him.
Peggy?
Yes, thank you. I agree with both of my commissioners. And I am concerned and just had brought this up to Marshall, if we could get a better grip on any budgetary matters, if there's, any kind of a, if we know possibly what his total package would be costing us in the long run, but I guess that's not really possible to ascertain at this point. It would be nice to know what we're looking for in that regards. What kind of budget we're talking about in the long term. And other than that, I think we couldn't do much better.
I am in full support. I guess the thing that I really like is that he has the experience as a chief at the upper levels. But then he also is still very much in touch with the specifics. And that really impressed me. So he's not just a high level, taking a step back and not getting into the details. And so I think that's important as we go to implementation, to make sure that we don't miss any of the important details. But then he also has experience as a chief, so he still has good experience to share with respect to the higher level. So yeah, I'm in full support.
Yeah, guy gets his hands dirty, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of what he's going to cost at the end game, depends how many hours he works, so we don't know. Yeah. Yeah, he is being compensated on an hourly basis. Yeah, he's perfect for us. He's been there, he's done that. He knows virtually everybody in the county. It's a great find. We're going to be very fortunate to have him. Very well done. Okay, so we need to execute that agreement. Need a motion?
I move that we execute the agreement with GC Joseph and Associates.
I
Yes.
second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Gonna
next
Shift the
is.
seconds around here.
Need a third?
And a fourth.
Okay, we need to take a look at and approve the commission meeting minutes from April 25th. That was the special meeting that we had to review the planning on the fire department. Does anybody have any comments, changes, additions, deletions?
I have a few.
Okay, let's take a look at them.
Sure, under number 3, the verb should be leads, L-E-A-D-S. The commission leads the Pledge of Allegiance. And the term progression is used, but the actually more appropriate term should be progress. It's used in the 3 paragraphs under number 4.
Yes, good get.
And
Yep.
then the second paragraph, second line from the bottom, it should read the hiring of a forensic consultant, A, the article A.
Got it.
And then lastly, a minor item, last paragraph on this page what page is that? That it should be tasks chart, capitalized C in chart, second line from the bottom. And I think that's it.
Okay, we have a motion to accept them with the appropriate changes.
I move we accept the minutes of May 25th, 2021 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. Start with John.
Well, I'm mostly pleased to have a commitment for a professional marketing firm to support the website. I just want to, again, reinforce and commend that. Other than that, I will share that in my journey coming from Boston to here, a couple lessons I'll pass on for all of you to know. I drove 3,086 miles. And in that time, unfortunately, police presence on the highways was virtually absent until I came to Florida. I saw literally 2 police cruisers in all that 2,500 miles. Then when I got to Florida, I did see some state police cruisers at PBI. And having spoken to some officers, the reasoning that they're not on the highways is because they have less in their force and they are pulled for other issues. So they're spending less time on the highways. So the point is be extra careful on the highways, especially 95 in our case. It is treacherous. The other thing I would mention is, generally speaking, through 9 states I went through, having spoken to a lot of people, a very real concern about crime, where more than being scared, I thought people would say they're scared, they're angry. Lastly, it's a real problem with small business. They just are getting killed, having gone through COVID, and now they can't get help. So it's a real problem. Small business is struggling. And so you should all know about that and support small business where you can. And the surprise for me, honestly, is one of the best cities. I mean, I went to a lot of different cities, including like Charleston and Savannah. The surprise city for me, having never been to St. Augustine, that is a great town. I highly recommend visiting it. Thanks. I just thought I'd share that with you. Other than that, I'm good. Looking forward to doing some more work here.
Well, welcome back, John. And thank you for zooming in on all of our meetings. We appreciate
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it.
it. Okay. Ellen?
Yeah, other than saying that I'm really pleased with the progress that we are making on all fronts, really, because a lot of what we're doing overlaps. So you can hire one firm to work in multiple areas. And yeah, we're moving right along, and I'm happy to see that. That's it.
That, okay. Peggy?
Yes, thank you. A couple things. Last week was a Florida League of Cities meeting. I was able to weigh in from a distance as I had to be out of town. And here's just a brief summary, though it's not concluded. I'm on the Transportation and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and the first transportation funding support initiative will likely be electronic vehicles infrastructure, pushing to get some kind of infrastructure for those who have the vehicles on public and private property. And so we will see how that goes. And the second would be affordable housing, because that fund has been rated several times in the past years and is in need of reevaluating and reimbursing that fund. So that will be, we'll have more on that in the next meeting in August and then one in September.
Commissioner, could I ask a question on
Yes,
that?
sir. Yeah.
Talking about infrastructure to support, being able to charge the vehicles.
Yeah.
Is anybody talking about the fact that we have to build more utility plants to generate the electricity?
Yes, that's a good point. That is under discussion. And there's the clean energy versus traditional energy. But yes, that is. Apparently, Florida is behind many other states in just providing some kind of a roadmap for EV charging. And they're looking to try to bring it up. It's not like we're all going to have an EV car next week, but they're looking to bring that forward. And then the second level of priority will be, of course, continued improvement on our roads.
But remember, in California, even with as many electric cars as they have, when they had the problem with the heat and energy, first thing they did, they told, don't don't charge your cars except within certain hours at
Right,
night.
right.
So they couldn't charge during the day.
Well, it's not like EVs will take over the world or our county or our state. It's just that for those EVs that are out there, there are not suitable charging stations. So they're not saying at the league level, ditch your 1981 cars and get, go fully EV. It's just like around town, they're still very useful and functional, not in a hurricane evacuation, not as a sole vehicle, but they are useful. And in certain communities, such as the villages in Central Florida, they not only have a widespread amount of EVs, but also golf carts. It's a little village like that. Well, it's not little actually, but it's sort of self-contained. Many areas, many developments are putting in EV charging, but the other parts of the state, we're way behind. And then the second level will be continued infrastructure of our roads. And I will tell you, driving back, when I crossed from Alabama into Florida, the pavement went immeasurably improved when I crossed into the Florida line. So FDOT's doing some good work there on I-65. It's just boom, clear and clean, even pavement. So we'll have more on that as we move forward. Regarding the fire department, did everyone see the Florida Bulldog story on the Broward municipalities? So I just read a little item on that. This appeared a couple weeks ago. Florida Bulldog is an online news service, but 13 towns in Broward County have been meeting in order to review their police and fire services. And this is the opening paragraph of the story. A rebellion is brewing among the 13 cities that pay tens of millions of dollars to the Broward Sheriff's Office. The principal complaints: skyrocketing costs, lack of fiscal transparency and accountability, and little or no input or control over the personnel assigned are their key issues. And it just sounded like,
Hello.
it sounded like a few other towns are looking at following our lead. So I wanted to compliment us being 2 years ahead of 13 Broward towns. I will add that the Sheriff's Department also provides fire rescue at the county level in Broward County. It's a combined program as of, I think about 8 years ago. So I'll have this available to have copies made for the staff and the commissioners. And then lastly, just wanted to read into the record the letter from Senator Tina Polsky written on our behalf to FDOT at the Tallahassee level. She wrote this just at following conversations, and she's working with Representative Caruso, who's really pushing very, very hard at the District 4 and state level also. She wrote, "Dear Secretary Thibault, I'm writing on behalf of the town of Highland Beach, which has been in contact with the Florida Department of Transportation for a number of years regarding flooding along A1A. I also wanted to thank you for participating in a Zoom call with Highland Beach and myself on this matter during this year's legislative session. As you're aware, the town of Highland Beach has been working with FDOT since 2015 to address the dangerous flooding along A1A. It is my understanding that 5 years ago, FDOT issued a drainage evaluation report and subsequently did some repairs. However, the number of repairs are still pending, particularly with regard to the swales. I've been working with Highland Beach and have numerous documents that include FDOT's references to repairing swales, but without ever adequately following up on the matter. Highland Beach has waited patiently for almost 6 years, so I would appreciate anything FDOT could do to move up the completion date for repairs to be made. In an email I received from FDOT on April 28th, 2021, the upcoming resurfacing project in Highland Beach is not scheduled to begin until 2024. That would mean they must wait almost a decade for completion of the road work since the initial study was completed. Please let me know how I can assist in speeding up the project for the good people of Highland Beach. Kindest regards, Senator Tina Polsky, Florida District 29.
Good
So
letter.
that also will have copies for the
Right.
staff. So that's my update. Their road resurfacing at the Alabama line is terrific.
Yeah.
Really great. And we're hoping and expecting to have the same here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peg.
So just to continue the discussion about the water bills, thank you very much for correcting. There's something problem glitch with the bill system, and so that was corrected. And so I did get some, updates on, what the bill was. So I kind of continued looking at sample bills. So I looked at, if you recall, when we did the study, we had some samples for a high user multifamily. So I looked at that bill in particular for the April through end of May usage. So the bill that came out June. So we were talking about, these percentages, drilling them down into real numbers and what it means for actual residents. This particular condo has 138 units. The bill for assuming, the usage that was actually used for for April 1st through end of May 2021, that bill went up by 17.7%, which would dollar-wise is $2,787, so about $2,800. So there's 138 units in that building. So that translates to, for each individual that, condo, it went up by $20 for that bill. Not too bad. So then I looked at, okay, for that building, I wanted to get a feel for what was the range and assessable values to give an estimate for what the tax bill savings would be. And so I found a unit in there that, the individual must have owned it maybe since the beginning and homesteaded it since the beginning. So their assessed value is $136,900. And so the savings to the mills is 1.653 mills. So the savings for that individual is actually like $23 on an annual basis. But for the 10th floor unit, probably the highest value unit in that condo is $450,000. And they're going to see about a $75 annual savings. So from the one bill, they're going to get 6 of those bills, right, in a year. Went up $20. Some people are going to see as much as a $75 annual savings. So 120 increase in water bill compared to 75, assuming it's a $20 every bill, right? Because depending on their usage, it changes. And then all the way down, most of the units in there are valued at about $345,000. They're going to see about a $57 annual savings.
Okay.
So to give you real, and then I did another one because I had a few extra minutes. And this was a average user, small unit. So a 26 unit condo. Their bill went from, their bill this time is $3,735. It would have been $3,105 under the old bill. So it went up by 20%, which is a total increase for that condo of about $630. So each individual person, each of the units in there, the 26 units, their bill went up by $24. Not that bad. And from what I could tell, the assessed values basically run from $315,000 to $440,000. So the ones that were valued at $315,000, they're going to see an annual savings of like $52. And then the individual with the $440,000, they're going to see savings of about $73. So it's not too
Very
bad.
similar scenario, not bad.
Yeah, so it's not bad
Okay.
to just, and then just a comment there's a table on the website. I think it uses I think we were thinking there was going to be like a 2 mil savings, 2.3. It ended up being a 1.6. So could you update that table? Okay, awesome. So the other, yeah, sure.
What I'd like to at least bring to the attention again of the residents who might be listening to this, we have a situation where the mayor heard the suggestion. We kind of dismissed it at first, but then thought about it.
Commissioner Gossett, Shoemaker, can you
I'm sorry. Damn. I should know better. Okay, I'll go back. Here, a suggestion was made, and I think he was dismissing the idea, oh, it shouldn't be any problem, but then thought about it and went to you to dig into it. And I clearly, by you going and doing the numbers, checking the arithmetic and the billing and whatnot, you uncovered something that is a bit, unfortunate, but it led to confirming, get the software fixed and resolve it. And so I thank both the mayor and you, Vice Mayor, for the follow-up and making sure that we're doing the best we can, knowing we're making a major transition here by putting the water department separate from what we've been paying for at the town and cleaning up our budget, our funding, and also doing it in a way where it's reasonable. In the end, I think what you're saying is, yeah, there's going to be slight differences here and there, and it might depend upon those that use more than others. But in the end, it all worked out fairly and with some balance, with a little give and take here and there. And you'll always have somebody who will complain that they got a raw deal. But overall, it worked out well from what I can see and hear and from the numbers presented. So I thank both the mayor and you for that kind of follow-up and diligence.
You're welcome. Any chance to use Excel and data and all that is welcome. So as part of analyzing the guidelines for our fund balances, I had requested a lot of information, and I think the town for all the information you've given me. And part of it was to take a look at our insurance policies. So that's kind of where I started from. So what I wanted to start off with was what's our exposure? And so I wanted to take my concern was like, how big are some of our deductibles? What kind of coverage do we have? Because, I think that's a big, reason for having the fund surplus. So we have a master policy with the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, which I guess the Florida League of Cities runs. And in there we have a general liability, an auto policy, a workers' comp policy, and a property policy. And I'm just waiting on the flood policy. The property piece is the biggest piece. So I don't know if you're interested, I would like to share it. So the premium that we pay for these policies is about $319,000. About half of that goes to the property piece. 1/3 of it goes for workers' comp. About 20% goes to general liability, and a very small share goes to auto. So for the property piece, that is the piece that seems to have the biggest exposure when it comes to deductibles. So like, for example, when I looked at the general liability policy, there's like no deductible, but the limits are up to 5 million. So I guess one question I had about the general liability policy is whether or not 5 million was a high enough limit. And if we, wanted, I don't know, something to consider the limits in there. But for the property piece, in the event of a hurricane, it looks like we have a 5% deductible. And that is of the coverages that we have. So for real property, we have it's valued at 16 million. And for like personal property, they call it, it's 10 million. So that's a total of 26 million. So in the event of a hurricane, it's 5% of that. So what I was figuring, the total, let's say we had a total loss, it's like a $1.3 million deductible. So that was something that, you know, I wanted to keep in mind as we looked at, you know, the guidelines for our fund guidelines. And I guess one question I had, so like everybody else, the property piece went up by 10%. And I guess one question, like, did we do an updated wind mitigation with the new roof? And does that come into play with our property? That might be something to look into.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah, typically that can produce, the roof is a big component of a property policy, and just want to make sure that we would get all the savings that we can. So hopefully the new roof would produce some savings on our property policy. The other thing that I came across too, in looking at our workers' comp policy, is that premium went up by 20%. And as I looked at the policy, one reason for the big increase is that our experience rating modification went up. It went from, and I don't know who looks at that, you know, who here looks at that, but the experience mod is a piece of the workers' comp policy where you compare the experience of that risk to everybody else. And if you have something over 1, you have worse experience, you have less than 1, you know. So our mod went from 1 in the prior year to like 1.2, which means that our experience deteriorated relative to other people that are similar to us. So I just am wondering if there's some opportunity there that we can. There's usually insurance companies have some sort of service that helps you take a look at your operations to help you save on, you know, preventing claims and things like that. That just seemed like a big jump to me. So that's something I would offer. So I guess as I was looking through all this, it occurred to me that perhaps, like, I guess I didn't know, what is our process when we look at our insurance needs for the town? I didn't know if the Florida League of Cities had some you know, they're the ones that came up with the, you know, the limits that we have and the deductibles that we have and the coverages that we had. Is it something that we do in-house? Do you know?
So with it, the anecdotal value of going through FIMIT is basically they do all of that for us and pool us all together as municipalities. So in-house, we don't go out and shop, compare, and rate insurances amongst ourselves. So if the commission is compelled, we'll have to take a look at that and see if there's something better. There are other large brokerage firms that do municipalities. Maybe it's time, but we don't say actively go through and compare on a year-to-year basis. We kind of inherently rely upon FIMIT, and that's the service that as a municipal trust, they're supposed to do this for us. So if something is striking you as odd or off, we will be more than glad to investigate and see what comes of that and how they exactly do that.
And I guess I want.
A couple of things struck me as odd. Thank you, by the way, for bringing it to our attention. The fact that we don't have deductibles in there, built in. I always viewed my personal insurance and my business insurances as catastrophic coverage. I would always fund the first dollar out of either personal or out of my business. I always do that also for properties that I'm involved with, like our building now, for example. So I would always take high deductibles. Knock on wood, it works.
So just to clarify, the no deductible was just the general liability. We do have deductibles on the property.
Oh, hi.
So for a hurricane, in the event of a hurricane, it's 5%. That was the
Well,
largest.
that's standard on hurricane coverage.
2 or 5, yeah. There's a whole schedule. It ranges from, some of it is like $5,000 deductible. And it is, and they've broken up all the different properties. So I guess I'm not entirely sure how the 5,000 gets applied, if it's per per location. They do it, they have each one as a separate line item. So I don't know how the $5,000 deductible applies. And then for some of the crime, it's $1,000 deductible.
Okay, I wouldn't want to take up all the time of the commission for it, but just in principle, also a 20% increase is, I'm not going to say unheard of, because everybody got hit with big increases because of the hurricanes, over in the western part of the state and throughout the Gulf. But buying as a major group, as you were describing, we shouldn't be looking at 20%.
So just to
As an
clarify,
individual, you get hit, but group buys should be able to do better. I'm just wondering if maybe we should look at a different approach. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, so just to clarify, the property went up 10%. It's the workers' comp that went up 20. And that's, I just don't know, I don't know why. It basically went because of our mod. Our mod went from 1.0 the year prior to 1.2 the current year. And
Within the pool though, right?
exactly, it's compared to, it
I
could be
think
that
if-
everybody else improved tremendously and we didn't. It's a
Exactly.
comparison thing, but
These things are always worth a second look. That's all. We may do a second look and find that we're doing great.
right.
Or maybe we find there's a better approach. That's all.
Yeah, and regarding the property, I just can't help but wonder if we did get an updated wind mitt, if they knew that we had a new roof, if that does improve our rate or not.
So, yeah, I don't know. And what I will tell you, I spoke with somebody at the manager's annual conference and I will speak with them and they don't step on each other's toe, but they're an option to FIMIT for municipalities. So maybe it's time we reach out a couple people and say, what do you think? What compares, what doesn't,
Well,
that kind of
if I
thing.
can suggest, and it sounds like Natasha knows a lot about insurance, so let her do a
I can
little work
sponsor
for
it,
us.
or I can help a
Sold.
lot.
Yeah, that's like,
Sold, you're on it.
that's her world, so. So
But
I
I
volunteer Natasha. Is that okay?
I'm happy to do it. I am.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know a lot about it, so let's take advantage of her knowledge.
But I also wonder if this is a good topic for the financial advisory board to get, I guess I'm curious as to what other people think
It-
about some of the limits that we have in our policies, some of the
With,
deductibles.
with all due respect to both you and the board, I think you have greater knowledge
Okay.
than those
Yeah, I'm
individuals.
happy to do it. I just, you're putting all your eggs in my basket, which I'm happy to do, and I'll
No,
I'll
no,
do my
no.
best.
I mean,
but-
you bring more to the table, so let's take advantage of it.
Okay.
Okay.
awesome.
You comfortable with that approach?
Sure. I will put it on the strategic priorities plan, see how projects come out of nowhere, right? So, and then there's also one in there with investments too. So there's a couple special projects we need to circulate back into strategic priorities to take a look at.
Yeah, we chatted about that, you and I.
Yeah. So I'll program those in. I'll try to get that contact to you from, it's a huge insurance company, but that way you could at least talk to somebody and makes contact to how they're intimately knowledge of how FIMIT works. I'm not. So it's a point of conversation with somebody that does this and does other large municipalities.
Yeah, we just like taking advantage of the knowledge that we have here. That's all.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, just to stay tuned. I am starting to make more progress on this fund balance project, and I have a lot more information. So
Okay.
hopefully, oh yeah, I do have one more thing.
All right, go ahead.
I have a request. Is it possible to move those meetings, the first week of August to the next week? We have 2 meetings,
The reason why we can is the commission minus the vice mayor will be in Orlando for that conference for the Florida League of Cities Conference in week 2. We could look at moving it,
Earlier?
the budget meeting down one, but we're out that second week. Is that correct? That's the second week, isn't it?
Is that
It is
during
the second week, yes. Yep.
Okay.
So if you're talking to move the 4th or the 3rd or 3rd and 4th?
So I'm not here that week. I'm in a Caribbean island that does not have internet connection. So right now, and I didn't realize we would be discussing one of my favorite topics, the 3rd and the
So-
4th.
Right.
Okay, so
Mayor?
we're scheduled right now, 3rd and 4th.
Right, and I'm out that entire week. So I don't know, I mean, if you'd be willing to do it the week before, I don't know, I hate to make you guys reschedule
That's
for
next
me,
week.
but I know,
if we
now
had-
it's too early. And then you're saying the week of the 9th is the out of town meeting?
We might be able to move one of the meetings to the 10th, whether it's the regular commission meeting or the budget workshop to the 10th. But thereafter, yep, starting on the late in the evening, the 10th, I believe a large portion is going because there's ethics training on Wednesday morning, correct? At like 8. Is that when you guys do it? Like it's really early, like 8:30, something like that in Orlando. So I'm guessing folks are going up and now to set everything up for Tuesday night. So
So you don't have to move it for me, but, you know, I mean, I can always provide you my comments.
I mean, we could, I mean,
Early.
everybody's been comfortable with the budget. I know we can move the budget workshop maybe to the following week sometime. I could try to take a look at that.
You're back the week of the 9th.
I am. I hardly ever go out of town, and I just happen to go out of town when we have like 2 meetings, and it's about the budget.
Which Caribbean island you going?
Are you more
Turks
concerned
again.
about, just to be honest, is it more the commission budget or is it the budget workshop meeting?
I'm not sure, which one do you think is more important that I be at?
Every meeting you guys have is very
I
important.
know.
We're going to be talking about referendum language on the 3rd. I don't know that I want to move that date because we
Okay.
need to make that decision because haven't got a comfort level from Mrs. Lynx. Hopefully Glenn can call his friend and get us a better date because we're kind of hitting a wall. I don't know if I'd be comfortable moving that date out of that week to make that one decision. But the budget workshop, everybody's seen the budget. Everybody seems generally comfortable with their capital, where we're headed, personnel. I mean, you know where the numbers are. So we could move that because I don't think there's going to be a long, heavy lift in there as far as I've worked for commissions in my career where, you know, you spend an hour on every line item and you bang your head against the wall. But I don't sense we're either in an economic condition that requires that or that there's that much there to take on over. That will take a lot of time moving through department by department, if you will.
Yeah, could we move that to Monday at 1:30? That budget, instead of the 4th, move it to,
Move
I
it to
proposed it.
the 9th? Monday?
We could.
You good?
If that's okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I would.
Everybody
1:30?
okay with that?
Thank you.
Deputy Clerk, August 9th, we are moving the August 4th to August 9th.
Hang on,
Wait, just kidding.
just let me double check my airline reservations. Wait, our daughter graduates that weekend. Let me make sure I'm back. Give me 1 second.
I just moved it.
Whatever date we pick, we will make the,
Okay, hang on.
Come on, Peg.
Okay, I'm back the 8th. Okay,
you're good.
9th is good.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
The 9th, budget meeting to the 9th.
Just to confirm then, we have meetings on August 3rd, 9th, 11 to 13 in Orlando, or 14, meeting on the 17th and 24th. I mean,
Yeah.
it's every Tuesday except for the 9th. Every week we're meeting.
We're meeting.
Yep.
We're meeting and talking. And then also in there, just to let you know, is you got health insurance renewal. That'll be sometime in August. We have a date circled that goes to the FAB. I think we can hit it at your next meeting. But healthcare, we're out to bid. So healthcare is going to come in too. And we'll have to run through those numbers.
So healthcare isn't provided through the trust?
No, we've done better outside of the trust so that
Okay.
you're going to say, well, what about insurance? Right. Yeah. So we're going to take a look.
Okay.
But we've been using a broker that's, in my opinion, earned their keep over the last few years really well. But we're their only municipal client. So it's kind of surprising, but until, you know, something he's been doing, the Ryan Golden
Yeah.
Associates done a great job for us. So, we have
Okay,
that, we have
that
that
makes
we've been doing outside of it and done well. better than our surrounding municipalities on rate structures, especially, bigger ones that you think would have a better buying power. Our rate increase control has been great. So, yeah. So maybe that's why we're looking
Yeah,
at it.
maybe
Maybe
it's
insurance would be
time.
the same. Yeah.
I mean, the trust is for municipalities. They all banded together and they all, so
Not all of them are in it though. So don't
Okay,
assume
yeah.
that every municipality. There's a lot of municipalities. It tends to be us smaller municipalities that don't have the buying power that get into that pool.
Right.
But there might be alternatives, and maybe now is the time to evaluate those.
Right.
Okay, my turn. We got covered, everything's covered. I got nothing. On to you, Glenn.
Yeah, I'll say on the mic, I don't think I have anything else to add. We talked about all these bond potential language and referendum language and everything else, so. see you on the
One
third.
quick question while you're up there. We keep saying a not to exceed number. Is that the best way to go? I mean, and we're not going to decide today, but
If obviously the best way to go is if you know the precise number, then you might build in a little bit of a factor and then just put that amount out there. But it's so early in the process to try and estimate what these numbers are going to be. For the second question, I mean, the first question of, fire department ability to fund it and all of that, that's pretty easy because there's no number involved in that one.
Well, where he leaves it there, I'll pick it up here. Our timeline is pretty compressed. So waiting to March could be problematic because we can't. So if the architect designs over the winter and we're ready to go, but we have to wait till March to get authorization to sell bonds, and when it doesn't go well, it could be problematic, but it may not be an issue because especially if you consider a private investment, which we'll take a look at in the third, is a plausible scenario. But, our window, while it looks large to get through at this moment each month as it closes down on us, and planning for elections, it takes a lot of time. So,
yeah, I mean, if we're not comfortable, really comfortable, maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe we should wait till March.
that's an option.
You're talking about the second question, right?
Second question.
Right. Because I'm hearing full speed on the first question. Is that,
I mean, we can't go twice.
no.
I know that.
I mean, there's two different questions.
There's
I mean,
two questions. One gives authorization to move forward with everything except for the firehouse, which hits our funding limitation. And if you wanted to sell bonds, then we're going to offer the option to do that on the same ballot to say authorize bonds not to exceed. But if you're not ready, you could wait to March. And if it goes well in March, it probably doesn't mess the timing up because we can solicit bond counsel and do those things ahead of the game. But we're assuming an approval.
Yeah, I mean, it's so small, probably a private placement anyway, so I'm not worried about the time frame.
Yeah, but again, that's like I always tell you, I want to tell you the benefits of generational benefit derived from big capital projects at a time. Not only is it going to benefit current people, it's going to benefit people in the future. It's just a matter of how far you want to spread that, while one, looking at it from a finance perspective, interest things that, but there'll be people that'll move here 2 or 3 years from now that will derive a benefit of a new fire station that aren't paying for it. So we just want to make sure we
No
capture that.
question.
Yeah.
I'm total agreement on
Yeah,
that. But that's why we have to find out what
Sure.
the terms would be of
sure.
bank loans. Are we talking 5-year bank loans, 10-year, 20-year? How far out can we go?
And the question I'll have Glenn investigate with the word finance that we have in question 1, does that allow us to go to a bank versus a bond issue, or to either or require the referendum of approval?
So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I believe what we're going to wind up with on question 1 is if question 1 is approved the way I'm thinking it's going to be written and approved, then the funding issue shouldn't be an issue. It should be you're approved to do whatever you need to do. But the second question to me is how do you raise the funds? Do you do a bond issue?
Which automatically requires a referendum. But if we don't do a referendum, does it require voter action to finance via a private placement?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know that one.
If you're talking to your bond counsel friends, if you can
Are
ask them that.
you, when you say private placement, are you,
Like if we go to PNC, we do, let's just play this out. So PNC is our bank and say say our project's 5 million. And PNC says, you know what, you've been great customers. We see your finances. You guys are in great shape. We'll give you a loan, a bank loan, basically for $5 million, 10 years, 2.75%, let's just say. Do we need voter approval to do that? Because we're not, in essence, issuing a bond, which is a separate type of financial instrument. It's a loan or debt, but it's not a bond where it's a general obligation bond where state statute governs. If it's a private issue like that, as we're talking about directly from the bank, do we need voter referendum to do it if we've already asked for the dollars in totality to build the fire station, but we go to a bank for a loan versus issuing a separate bond document? That's what I'm kind of confused on.
okay, when you said private placement, there are private placement bonds as well.
Yeah, that's actually, you're right, correct.
Okay.
If we got a loan from the bank at
Okay.
whatever, yeah.
So again, I don't know if you want me to get into this now or should we talk about this first? Because,
I think the more we as a group understand this,
okay, so.
gives us time to think about it.
All right, so the funding limitation language, which we've all heard a zillion times, let me read part of it again. So any single project, accumulation of projects, or extension of town services requiring an allocation of more than $350,000 any given fiscal year shall not be funded until the purposes and amounts of such allocation shall have been first approved by the majority of votes cast in an election. So theoretically, and this is what we're researching, if the ballot language says something along the lines of, shall the town of Highland Beach be authorized to establish and operate a fire rescue department and funding, that's the purpose, funding to be approved by the town commission on an annual basis, and that's voted on by the people, that very well may satisfy that requirement,
Regardless of how we finance it.
regardless of how you finance it. So that's the direction that I'm heading in. I'm not
I like that.
100% comfortable. I thought you would like that. I like it. I just want, I'm vetting it with 2 other lawyers in the office to make sure that this is.
Not so fast, but if you choose to do a bond issue, you have to have a separate voter action.
Right. So that's the.
Not a
part.
bank loan, but the bond. So.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So let me
Yeah,
explain the
because
bond.
that's specific in the charter. Yeah, I understand that.
And a bond issue, just to explain that a little bit, if you have a bond issue, as Marshall says, then that has to be voter approved separately under state law because you're pledging basically the full faith and credit, some portion of the full faith and credit of the town. But secondly, there's then a lawsuit that gets filed about that. It's called a bond validation proceeding. So once that happens, then the town files a lawsuit through the bond council and it gives the world so many days to file objections. And that's part of the whole bond council process. That's a little bit of a longer process. As the mayor says, it might be more expensive. And so we're going to look into what are bond council fees, financial advisor fees, all of those things versus going to Bank X and saying, okay, we want a 30-year loan for $5 million.
And then you have annual management fees with bonds.
So there are expensive bonds. I'm certainly not going to be advocating bonds, but it's a traditional way of doing, especially larger numbers than what we're talking about.
So,
here.
Mayor, can I just ask you, does it mean that we asked for approval on the firehouse, and then we go ahead and we borrow from a bank $5 million? We don't need any approval from the residents. Is that going to be viewed as an end around to avoid their participation?
No, that's not where I'm trying to, right, I want to keep the financing separate from the authorization. Because your funding limitation applies unless the voters approve it. So if your question that you put on the ballot, you approve this question on August 3rd, if it's very clear that they're authorizing the funding of establishment and operation of a fire department with the amount to be approved, because those are the words that are in here, the purpose and amounts, that the amount to be approved by the commission on an annual basis, that might satisfy the needs of that funding limitation language. Then how you decide to do that, whether you're taking it all from reserves, that's a different conversation. And that may be a different approval process. I haven't gotten to part 2 yet. Commissioner, I can't really answer that one yet. really focused on part one. How do we get part one in a legally defensible, morally defensible, public relations defensible way? Because I realize it's not just
Yeah,
a
all of the
lawsuit
above.
assignment.
Yeah, right. And rest, I'm not saying no to a bond, and I'm not objecting to a bond. I just want to know all the costs before we make our
What our
decision.
options are.
Yeah.
Totally.
I just want to point out that when the idea of a $45 million bond was raised, they did in fact hire bond counsel way before anything was approved. And there was a payment, and they were paid a lot of money for basically doing nothing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they were spending money right and left. Listen, they went for a town credit rating, which was totally inappropriate, and totally unnecessary.
So,
Yeah, they did a lot of stupid things.
right, you don't want to even get bond counsel until you know you're going to have authority to do a bond.
However, a very important point was made by Marshall, and let's not let that pass over. And that is, with a bond, let's say it's a 30-year bond, future owners in town are going to be enjoying this fire rescue, and they're going to be paying for it. If we do shorter term financing, future owners are getting the benefit of it, and they're never paying for it. So a bond goes out for many, many years, and new owners are paying for it. So, I mean, that's an important aspect. Now, there's other ways to take care of your debt so future owners pay for it. Also, you can continue to refinance your debt over time. There are a lot of ways to spread this stuff out, but it's an important point. Let's not miss it.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah, we have to take into consideration the expense of doing this
But
financing.
again, there's a
Right.
cost
There's
involved.
There's a balance
Yeah.
here, yeah.
For sure.
For which Matt will have ready for you at the next meeting is all the finance options and costs.
So as I said, I have nothing to say.
You take no responsibility.
Aren't we glad you got up there, Glenn? Well, you like the challenge of it. Yeah. Marshall, you got anything left?
We've covered everything we're working on. Again, just reminding healthcare is coming up, so that'll be in the queue with that. And that's it.
Okay. Last chance if anybody has missed anything. No? Okay, it is 3:27 and we will adjourn. Thank everybody for your attention.